All right, I'm gonna head down to Lowe's and probably hit up Walter Anderson because I thought it would be fun to do a video on small scale like patio gardening and growing herbs, and I also want to grow a tea garden. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to see what I can find for the cheapest amount of money, basically, so that anybody can start gardening. So I hope that you will stick around and see what I find. Okay, we're at Lowe's. Some herbs. Oregano. Sage. Basil. Rosemary. Okay, so now that I've made my way to Lowe's and Walter Anderson, I'm going to throw together a quick and easy herb garden that you can grow in a small space. And I'll run down a little bit of the cost, but there's going to be so many variables depending on the size bucket bag that you want, or if you have a place, or you can go to Walmart and buy a $5 kiddie pool and fill that up and drain holes in the bottom and then do an herb garden that way. But today I'm going to be using this 15-gallon felt bucket bag that I got off of Amazon. And I believe that I bought 12 of those 15 gallons for $33.99. And if I break down, each one was $2.83. So even if you're just going to make a herb garden out of this, you can also use the other ones to grow tomatoes, peppers, anything else in your small space that you want to fit in there. And then, so my total cost, and I'm going to guess on the bucket bags. They do sell these felt bags at Walter Anderson. I did not see this size, the 15-gallon size. I didn't check that price, so I'm going to say it's probably around $10. I did check the price on a 5-gallon one. That's about this size, and they are $6.99. I was originally going to put my herb garden in here, but it's just going to outgrow it probably way too soon, so I opted for the bigger bag. So my total cost, had I bought this for $10 at Walter Anderson with my 5 plants that I have here, this bag of soil, looks like it was right around $45. So you can get started for a relatively fair price. But yeah, so I'm just going to go ahead, and I am going to throw in, I'm going to actually make 2 bags. Like I'm going to do a tea garden bag and then an herb garden. These I did grow from seed. These are basil, and then the chamomile I also grew from seed. That's one way that you can cut costs if you're trying to save a little bit of money, is buying seed and then trying to grow from seed. It's really not that hard. You just need a warm spot, sunny location. Just like once you get this completed, you're going to need to put it in a sunny spot and keep the rabbits away, which seems to be my problem right now. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with my, I think I'll do the herb garden first. So what I'm going to be putting in my herb garden is going to be this blue spice. It's actually really sweet smelling. This is basil, and then this is the dark opal. And this one's more spicy, or like, I don't know if spicy is the right word, but 2 different smells on these. I like the way that the blue spice smells. So I'm going to put those in my herb garden. And then I'm going to plant this English thyme and this Italian oregano. So those are going to go into my herb garden. And then what's going to go into my tea garden is going to be peppermint, lavender, lemongrass, and chamomile. And like I said, with doing this, there's a lot of variables. You can potentially go smaller, but just remember that your herbs are probably going to overtake a smaller one. It's actually probably going to overtake this one, but not nearly as quickly as if I were to put it in a smaller one. Let's see if I can get it in there without spilling. And you'll probably need 1.5 bags for the 15-gallon. So I have some extra down here that I'm going to throw into this. I do make my own compost, so that's another way that you can offset the cost. If you have the room to do it, then that's probably a really good option. And even though I have a lot of property where I live, it's just not feasible for me to grow a garden just anywhere, because you want your garden to be accessible, otherwise you'll tend to forget about it or not want to go out and water. My garden is really close to my house, and I have used, as you can see, primarily container garden is what I'm doing, is container gardening. And you can squish it down into a small space as long as there's enough sun. You don't have to have a big garden. Okay, now that that is nice and full, and this will, over time, that it will settle, the soil will settle, and that's okay. Okay. I'm gonna bring you closer. And having an herb garden or a tea garden is really nice, because if you want to, you can dry your herbs, your tea, and if you like to cook and a recipe calls for something, you have it right out there and you can just go grab it. And that's what I like most of all about having access to this stuff. So for these ones, they're more low, so I'm going to fill up a little bit more, but for my basil, I am going to dig a hole and kind of close to the edge here, like this part here. And then we'll do the same here for this one. Those two definitely needed to be planted, so I'm glad I'm doing this. It's about time. They needed it bad. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit more soil up here just to build it up a little bit so that those will sit a little bit higher. And I think I'm going to set them back a little bit, because these ones I think are going to spread. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm doing. And before you know it, this thing will be so much bigger. Like I said, if I put it in a 5-gallon, I would probably have to switch it up relatively quick. Turn this one this way. And just like that, you have an herb garden. Okay, now we're gonna do the same for the tea garden. And a lot of these soils, the potting soils that you buy from like the big box stores, come with fertilizer in them to feed the plants for a while, but you are going to have to at some point start fertilizing them yourself. And I'm just going to start planting. Now, things like mint, well, all of these three really get really big. The lemongrass, the lavender, and the mint, they can all get really big. Hopefully they won't choke each other out in here, and they'll stay relatively small for at least a while until I can figure something else out. But we're just going for it. Sometimes we just have to work with what we got. Don't forget to stick your tab, your identifier back in there. I think I'll be able to figure out what that is, but we're gonna put that there anyways. Man. Okay, And then I'm just gonna take this chamomile. It's not doing very well. It's been in this little container for quite some time. You can see it's a little root bound. That's why we need to get it out of here. And the rabbits have eaten all the other stuff that I had planted out there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and plant a couple of these plugs throughout the planter and call it good. I've always wanted to do a tea garden, but I just never have, so I'm really glad I'm doing this. And I'm going to experiment with teas, like do a lavender chamomile or a lavender lemongrass tea. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. I got nowhere else to put these chamomiles, so I'm just going to put them all in here. I mean, why not? See how it goes. And you can find soil calculators too online if you just put in like how much soil do I need. It'll ask you what size pot you're using, and then it will give you the amount of soil that you need for said pot. And voila, there you have it. This is my tea garden. So like I said, if you have the ability to grow your, whether it's tomatoes, peppers, peppermint, basil, anything that you want in your garden, if you have the means and the place to grow plants from seeds, I highly recommend doing so. It does cut down the cost a whole lot. These plants, the lavender, the peppermint, the thyme, and the oregano, I paid like $4.98 I think at Lowe's. And then the lemongrass I paid $4.99 at Walter Anderson because they didn't have any at Lowe's. And that's, I mean, pretty pricey. I think it's gone up a lot. And then I grew these two from seed. And then I grew the chamomile from seed as well. So if you can, you get more bang for your buck. If you have the ability to do so, I recommend doing so. But yeah, so I have this on a 6-foot table for now because I don't want the rabbits to eat it. So I'm going to leave it up here for a while until I can figure out a place to put it. But I'm just trying to show you that it can be done on a small scale. You can have a garden if you want. If you choose to grow like tomatoes and things like that, I would go with maybe a determinate size, which only gets to a certain size and then it just stops, as opposed to an indeterminate size will just grow like crazy. And I suggest putting those in a bigger bucket. And most peppers you can get away with, I think, putting them in the 5-gallon buckets. I hope that if you've ever wanted to garden but you just never thought you had enough room, I hope that this inspires you to give it a try. All you really need to do is just water it every day. Make sure it's got sun and water. It's that simple. If I can do it, you can do it. I hope that you have a beautiful day.